front stadium here. And as we break this thing down, it's fun. You'll see he's hunched over. You can see he has his bat in a very unorthodox position here, at least in today's game, where everyone talks about getting the knob facing the catcher. Okay, so we'll notice how narrow he is here. His feet are very close together. He's hunched over, and then he's going to go forward, and he kind of hitches down as he's going forward. Okay, that's his hands are very low, and then he's going to pull them back up when he goes to launch his swing. So very long stride. And by the time he gets to heel plant, that's where I'm stopping it right now. You can see his knob is facing his inside of his back foot, really. Okay, where most people are going to have that knob facing the catcher. You're also going to notice that his hands are really low. If I draw a vertical line from his top hand, it's underneath his chin. Well, most players today are a fist higher than that. They're at the ear. Okay, so his hands are now. Again, I think he's 44 years old here, so it was very difficult for me to find footage, of in the 60s from the side. We couldn't really find anything. There wasn't a lot out there. But if we watch him to rotate, one of the things that I found interesting too as I do this is Rose talked about how he loved home runs. He wanted to be the home run hitter. He didn't want to be the table setter. Which I thought was mind blowing. He was like the best table setter ever. Anyway, yeah, all time, right? So if we look here, the cool part is when his and also take notice at how his front foot isn't open. Okay, so his front foot is pretty closed at heel plant. Now again, this is his left side swing. I couldn't find a right hand swing from the side, but this is his left hand swing, which he probably had more power from the right side. He probably used his lower body a little bit more aggressively from the right side. Because that was his natural throwing side. So if we look here, again, his front foot's kind of closed, but he gets to a decent stretch position. Like he's 44 years old. He's not going to have a lot of stretch here. Okay, so he's got, maybe 20 degrees of torque here as he starts to rotate. But you can see his hips leading. Okay, and now he's going to go to rotate. And he gets to a great short approach position. Okay, so short approach is when the chest starts to open, the chest starts to face closer to home plate or the front foot. Notice how the knob of the bat is, wrong button there, but the knob of the bat is, inside his back elbow quite a bit. So there's no bat drag or anything. And then that bat slots right in next to the shoulder. So, just a perfect position. How you get there, right? He had the long stride, he had the hitch, he had the low hands, but he did get to a great short approach position. Notice how he's released his backside. Okay, so there's no bug squishing or collapsing there. Let's see what his head does here through contact. And then as he continues, he really slides the knob forward. We'll see that in the overhead view here we'll look at in a second. But guys that pull the knob forward from the short approach, which is back in here, to the regular approach, which is out here, it's those 3 or 4 frames. Guys that use their lead arm really well tend to stay inside the ball more. And guys that stay inside the ball more, it just means their barrel faces the middle of the field longer. Okay, they're not going to hook balls as much. Now, if you stay inside the ball too long, that's not good either. You'll just slice across stuff. But anyway, if we look at this, the other thing we'll notice is, he pulls this ball, I believe, into right center field. Okay, but notice how his hips really never clear, right? His hips, they're maybe facing, between the pitcher's mound and maybe the shortstop. It's not a big lower body move. If you look at how much space he has between his knees, there's a lot of space, which means this left hip didn't come through all the way, okay? But that wasn't the kind of hitter he was, okay? That wasn't him. He was trying to hit balls in the middle of the field. I believe if we looked at this from the front, if you look at his toe line, he's closed, right? So he really strode closed on this, right? His front foot's close to home plate. His back foot's further from home plate. So what does that do? That restricts the hips a little bit more, okay? Now, that's really good for guys that stay inside the ball. It'll keep them, to use the whole field more. But, for guys that are power hitters that are trying to release the barrel, that makes it, just a little bit tougher. So anyway, kind of a cool move, from I almost said Hall of Famer there, from a possible Hall of Famer in 20,950, or whatever, whenever this poor guy's going to get in the Hall of Fame. But knob for, what's that? Well, people can go in the Hall of Fame after they've passed. It's going to be one of those, I think, unfortunately. But anyway, so you can see he braces his front side. So now we're going to look at an overhead view here. So just give me a second to view of Pete Rose, right-handed. He's obviously playing for the Reds again, but this is likely in the 70s. Okay. And this is a cool video because it's shot overhead, and I don't know how they got this. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay. So it's an overhead view. And what I love about this is, and my dad used this video back in his like original analysis. I don't know if it was in his original DVD or just in his PowerPoints, but he used to say how he just rotates right around his head. If you put a dot right here on his head and you watched him rotate through the ball, his body's just rotating around his head, and that's a rotational hand pass. So this is a rotational hand pass really without barrel release. Okay, this is if you're a golfer, this is coming from the inside. This is staying inside the ball. And most people talk about, what is staying inside the ball? Well, the barrel's inside the baseball. Well, of course it is. If the barrel was outside the baseball coming in this way, it would be like impossible to hit. So it's, when people say, oh, you got to stay inside the ball, a lot of people don't really know what that is. What I always tell players is inside the baseball is when you're in this position here, when you're in your short approach position, that barrel is inside your hands. Okay, so you're coming from in here. And then the longer it takes for that barrel to get outside, so you can see the barrel doesn't get outside. If we draw, like here's a parallel line on his bat, and here's a parallel line on the batter's box. So right now, Jim, I have his bat parallel to the batter's box line, okay? And they're totally parallel. If someone is out the bat lag position, yes. If somebody is in this position and they're not inside the ball, typically the knob is here to the left and the barrel would look like this. And to me, that would be somebody that's outside the ball. Okay. Why were they outside the ball? Because they crunched up their left arm, right? They have a left arm breakdown. And when you have a left arm breakdown, it pulls the left arm into a weird position and it shoots the barrel away from the body. So the longer we can keep the bat next to the body here, next to the shoulder, you can see as he rotates, right? That bat's next to the shoulder. He's going to whip that thing through. Then once you get to here, if you start to decelerate your body, boom, that's what whips the bat out and through. Well, he doesn't really decelerate his body. You can see he's still rotating. You can see the rows on his back, right? His shoulders are still rotating. So that barrel doesn't really whip out quite enough for a power hitter. Okay. So check this out. Okay. Now it doesn't mean everybody has to do that. Okay. That's a much riskier move. I mean, this is hitting a ball. He's hitting this ball almost perpendicular to the incoming pitch. Okay. Look at his contact point. We've talked about contact points in the past. Did he pull this ball? No, he hits it between the second baseman and the second base bag. Okay. Look at what part of the plate it's on. So this is an outside pitch, and he's hitting it probably almost at his front foot. Okay. Yeah. But you can see if it was an inside pitch, he'd get toasted, right? He'd get blown up. So would he have to hit the inside pitch way out here? Oh, I can't get there. It adds off. He would have to really get that thing out in front. One of the things he also mentioned in Good Morning America was, hey, man, you got to get that bat head out in front. If you hit it back here, you're going to hit foul balls on good pitches. You got to hit it out in front. Well, this tells me that that's what Rose was trying to do. Even though he was what you would call a contact hitter, he wasn't letting everything get deep, right? He wasn't, letting everything get all the way back here on top of him and trying to shoot it. Because if you did that, you have to manipulate good mechanics. In order to hit a ball this deep in the zone and it's not out here, on the outside channel, like off the plate, ball 7 or something like that, ball 8 out there, then what happens is you got to break down your swing. So if he takes this good swing where he gets the knob out in front, right here, boom, he's pulling the knob into right center field. Then as he rotates around, boom, that thing's going to release. He just hits it and then it releases. We don't get to see the release on this. The video cut off. Okay. But he could have released this thing if he just, hit the ball out in front more. He hit it before release. This is one of the reasons when we hit the ball the other way, we don't have as much power than we do the pull side because it's not releasing. So it's just a cool thing. It doesn't mean everybody has to do that. A lot of guys, that maybe don't. He stays inside the ball a long time here, right? We talked about look how long it takes for the barrel to get outside of his hands. Not until there. Okay. So what does that mean? That's going to delay his whip, which is good. You're storing energy. You're storing. Look at this angle between his in the lag position. This angle between his bat and his forearm. I mean, that's like a golfer, right? That's Sergio, baby. That's a really good storing of energy. Boom. Then he's going to release that right hand, and when you release the right hand and this barrel flies out, that's going to really accelerate the bat head. Okay, so that only happens if you keep the knob going out in front and keep the barrel facing back here. But what are players trying to do? Oh, we're trying to get on plane deep in the zone because we want to be on plane early. But if you get on plane early, you got to kind of manipulate the swing, and it doesn't work. So anyway, I thought this was. I love to hear what players say and what players think, especially old timers before video, before annotations, before metrics, because it was feel. Like, what did they do? They didn't have a hitting coach. They didn't have I mean, here's Pete Rose saying, I'm going to play pepper and then I'm going to hit the ball out in front. And then he just made his body do that. Okay, that's how he learned how to hit. Babe Ruth learned how to hitting fly balls to everybody at his St. Mary's School for Boys, right? Like, that's how he grooved his swing. That's how he got going. So I really think we complicate things with young kids, and it creates problems. Now, I also think that there's so many young kids that have poor mechanics at age 9 and 10 that if we don't fix them, they're not going to play at 13 or 14 anymore. So we're able to extend players' careers now, but I think as coaches sometimes, we take it a little bit too far. And I try not to. Like, I'm very conscious of that now, of not over coaching, knowing what the problem is, but not relaying that to the player and just giving them small things to work on. Because, if you give a 9 or 10-year-old too many things and you get too complex, you're going to lose them. And it's like, hey, go out and do this. Throw a ball up and hit it. Here, set the tee here, try to hit the ball here. Put a ball under your right arm because you're bat dragging. Get a feel for that. Use that feel to help your instruction. Versus, okay, do this, drop this elbow here, this arm here, this hand here, blah, blah, blah. Those kids are going to tune you out. So let's be like Pete and, do things that show results. Like, I know if I can control the barrel, I'll be able to hit a ball to right field and left field. I know if I hit it out in front, then my mechanics are good. If I can't make contact out in front and keep it fair, then I'm probably rolling my wrists or doing something, incorrectly. So anyway, this is kind of a fun breakdown to see, left-handed and right-handed swing. His right, from what I see here, and it could be age, but his right-handed swing was much more athletic and pretty compared to his left-handed swing, for sure. I believe this was during his 40, I don't know how many hits he had when he broke 44. Okay, so Willie Keeler. Oh, and they do, and they shouldn't believe anything you hear on TV or read in the news. Do people read newspapers? Okay, so this is a hit streak one. So this was probably in the 80s, maybe late 70s. And this was a Phil Niekro fastball, I think. I think they said it was a knuckleball, but it sure looked like a high fastball to me. So if we watch, Rose here, we get a view of what he did, right? From the side view we looked at earlier. He looks like he starts square off the plate with his feet close together, and then watch how much he closes off. Okay? So he is really closing off his heel line, right? And now he's going to pull this pitch. Okay, so what happens is he's got you can see he loses his posture and everything on this. If we look at his head here at heel plant, watch how much his head moves up and out just to clear room for his hips to come through, right? So, I mean, this is a guy who's just finding a barrel. It's maybe not the most technically perfect swing, but it's probably also why he hit the top of it, because his head came up and out And so his, your eye level is going to go up and out. But if you look at his contact point, like ideally, when you're this closed off, I'm stopping him right before contact. Notice how his chest is facing left center, his hips are facing left center, and before he makes contact, his bat is facing left center. So this is where he should have tried to hit that, right? The problem is he was a little bit early. So now all of a sudden his body's still facing the shortstop side of the base, but his bat is facing the pull side. And so what happens is he ends up topping this just a little bit. And you can see his barrel kind of flip up and over that. And the reason it flipped up and over is because he just had a hard time getting through it. You can see his legs are trying to open. My favorite part is the giant flash. It almost looks like the natural after contact. I mean, I don't know who's some. I mean, there's no way that's a fan's camera flashing right when he hits it, but they timed it right. They got that video. And anyway, this was the ground ball under the second baseman. Yeah, yeah, like after contact. So okay, so I'm going to reiterate what you said for the video because the video can't hear you. I tried to get that audio going. So Jim asked a question here. He said, I really, his swing just looks all over the place. His feet are all over the place. His head's moving all over the place. And Jim said, look how happy his feet are. Look how his back heel is coming up before his front foot even lands. So that's actually like jump starting your hips. So because he's so closed off, he's got to get his hips going. And you'll see some guys do that. You'll see hitters. Troy Tulowitzki used to do that, where guys would really jumpstart their hips. And I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad. I think it's very good for torque and separation. If you know you're going to swing at a pitch, it's no problem. But if you do that on every pitch, let's see when his back heel comes off the ground. So let's see where Niekro's. I'm sure Niekro's fastball is about 78 miles an hour here, right? So I mean I guess that ball is probably at least halfway to the plate, and Rose is like, okay, I'm going to get after it, right? And that's why his back foot is started before his front foot lands. And it is. His swing is, I mean, like I said, he comes out of his posture here and his head comes up. Part of the reason is it's a high pitch and he's hunched over. So, that when you're hunched over like this, and this is what people teach, they want you to swing perpendicular to your spine angle. So if that's the case, that, should be his bat plane, right? Something like that. Well, the problem is the pitch is up. So now all of a sudden he's got to change his posture to be more vertical to get to it. Okay. So what I teach players to hold their posture. And then at the last minute, if they got to bend over to drop the barrel, then they make that adjustment late. That's a much more teachable and performable movement. But anyway, I digress a little bit. Yeah, he's all over the place. But what it shows us is hitters are hitters. Like nobody taught him to do that. Nobody told him you need to keep your back foot on the ground longer. Nobody told him you need to do this, you need to do that. He's athletic. Like he's playing. This is a stickball swing. This is, I'm a kid playing stickball. I'm going to hunch over. I'm going to have my feet close together, and all I'm going to do is step into it, and then I'm going to try to find a barrel. And that's what he did here, and it worked, well over 4,000 times. It's not